Hey guys, what's going on? We're back here in the
Damn, dude, I was
Cock
going to take
podcast.
over.
You know, Tyler had
He
his
set
moment to
me
do
up.
the intro, and Tyler choked.
No, you set me up for that. I was ready to roll.
No, when I say, Tyler, it's your show, you run with it.
God,
That's 100% you.
And you didn't
maybe
do it.
I'm not Joe Rogan.
You were like, I'm
I
the
thought I
Joe
was Joe
Rogan of this
Rogan.
generation. It's like 3, 2, 1, go, and you get fucking pee shy.
It was called a pregnant pause. If you guys knew anything about show business, you would know what that was.
I think you choked. I think you choked.
I'm gonna reel it back in. All right, it's my show. I'm taking over. Everybody, thank you for coming to my very first podcast. Welcome in. I've got a great guest today, Ryan Bucciantini and Jason Leydon, the man. No, I'm just kidding. No, but here we go.
Are you kidding about me being the man? What are we going on here? What are we kidding
I'm
about?
not kidding about that. I'm
The
not
fact
kidding
that you
about
even
that.
got our
I'm
last
actually the
names
host.
right
I know.
is like super impressive.
How many
Oh, I
Christmas
told
trees do you have behind you?
So I'm at home keeping my son today because my wife had some stuff going on. And I literally walked around the house. And I was like, where could I do this with the most badass backdrop? And it had to have been that.
My favorite part
that's
of
what I
all of
landed on.
this is a non-video podcast as Tyler's showing his house around. So for all the
Dude, I
listeners
thought we
out
were
there,
always
Tyler
video.
has 35 Christmas trees behind him for the newly minted, high-level, high-class designer, Tyler Cooke.
She's high profile now. Yeah. She can come and decorate your place if you need it. It's great.
I just got dead animals all over the wall. Nobody needs to
probably
decorate
get rid
my
of
house.
those.
We've been asked to do this live, but I'm a little hesitant on Ryan if we go live and what might be
A couple
said
weeks
and
ago,
done.
you'd have gotten kicked off the airwaves.
Yeah, so, you know.
Don't put
Anyways.
this on me like you're some sort of saint.
Hey, I told you what my mom texted, right? She's like, dude, she goes, I listened to so I guess it was last week when 2 weeks ago came out. She goes, hey, I listened to your podcast. You were so good. That was great. And she goes, but I just didn't like that man's language.
Oh, me?
I said, Mom.
Me?
Yeah. I said, Mom, don't listen to the podcast. What are you doing?
Did I curse too much? Josh says that
I
all
think
the
you
time.
cursed once. And then she's probably my mother. You got to understand, my mother is from like Alabama.
What's
You
her
know
name?
what I mean?
Dee?
Shout out D. Cook.
Dude, shout out Dee Dee. How about
I
it?
can't swear. I cannot have Dee.
No. Let it rip.
I cannot have Dee Dee saying I don't like that man's language.
You know what then she said?
She
then
better
followed
not
up.
go
She said,
back
but I guess
more than
that
like 5 episodes.
she won't. To be fair, fellas, all she cares about to me here. But she said, but I guess that's just the old lady in me. That's what her follow up was. So I think we're good.
I'm hurt. I got to watch my language. I cannot offset D.
Don't do that. I'm going to bring us back in as the host. There will be no cuckolds this week. We will not talk about Steve Ramos or whoever that was that last week we got on to. And then
Matt Anthony.
Matt Anthony. What a dick. And then great. We're going to stay on topic. The topic this week, fellas, is something I've been actually wrestling with in both myself. And then we've got a guy at the gym that's training with you guys' as protege, Owen. And shout out Owen. And he's kind of in the same spot. And so what I want to talk about and get y'all's perspective on is so now we're crossing over into December, which is going to ramp up into January, leading into the Open and kind of build everybody's season, depending on what that looks like for you. I've taken 3 months of I told Ryan at the game, I said, dude, I just want to bench and get really jacked. Not a lot of heart rate stuff, just kind of do my own thing. It's great. He wrote me a bunch of bodybuilding, a lot of Dairy Queen mixed in. It's been an awesome 3 months.
What do you get from Dairy Queen?
I get the a medium blizzard. You can't get a large, even if you want one, because they don't get the toppings to the bottom. And then I get a Oreo with cookie dough, and you cannot miss. Dude, it's so good.
2,500 calories in one sitting.
But yeah, you got to be careful. I work with Mike with him too. By the way, he's a genius. And then for the last 3 months, I've just been almost ignoring him. I'm glad he hasn't fired me because I just haven't done it. But it's great. It's been a great 3 months. Point is, it's time to get back on the thing. I called Ryan a couple weeks ago. Said, hey, I talked to Callie. We're going to get our dog. I'm going to go back to the games and try to win the game. It's going to be great. So that means ramping back up. And so now I'm in this mode of Ryan starting to give me, we've gotten some more intensity. We've gotten some more stuff going, more mixed motor work. And I'm talking about just getting my ass kicked. Mentally, the problem is that I've got as the athlete is that I'm mentally still in July and what I'm capable of doing in July, August around the games time, but the body is nowhere close to that. And so part of what I texted him the other day, I was like, dude, I gotta, it's very hard because I can't even, I look at a workout, I back into it. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. And then when I get in it, I'm just not able to do it. So it's I don't even know where to back off and how to pull. So for you, from a programming standpoint, how do you manage that ramp up? Hold on, I'm getting a call from nobody. There we go. How do you manage that ramp up from going from, hey, we're here, we need to get here, and that's going to take some time, but mentally I'm ready to roll. That's kind of the general thought I've been having lately.
All right.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, First off, for the Joe Rogan of our generation, this is podcasting 101. You put your phone on silent.
I'm so sorry. I'm doing that right now. I'm so sorry. That was so rude.
Fucking
And
rookie.
it popped up on my computer. That's the problem.
Who keeps a ringtone on their phone still?
It wasn't a ringtone.
Tyler
It wasn't a
definitely
ringtone. It was
has
vibrating.
some
Taylor
sort of
Swift.
like Shakira move your hips sort of sound ringtone from
I'm
the
going to
90s
do that,
still
and
on
next
his
week
phone.
it's going to actually go off, and I'm just going to let it run.
Okay, so your question is, how did we kind of build you back in, or the transition from kind of like off-season bodybuilding to where we're at now?
Yeah, so it's weird because this year's been different for me.
Yep.
The previous 2 years, there was always a plan of like, hey, we're going to go back and do it again. And so we
Mhm.
took some time off, but not 3 months of like, I mean, I might have snatched twice in that
We were
3
full
month period.
bodybuilding. Yeah.
Full bodybuilding. I mean, we ran some because I did some high rock stuff, but like for the most part, it was very low. I mean, I did some stuff on Saturday. I've never had that much in the last 4 years. Now I'm like ready to ramp back up. You throw me some stuff, and I'm like, oh, let's just jump in. Because mentally, I'm like, I know how to hit this, whatever. And it's just a totally different. It feels different. I feel like I'm breathing through a straw at times. Like it's just kind of different. And then I'm sorry, Ryan, real quick. Then the athlete who's got in the gym is his goal is to make quarterfinals this year. He's working with Owen, and I think he's a master's guy, but he's just in that threshold. Like Owen's taking him through like they had a testing phase, and now he's getting him kind of ramping up into building into that. You kind of got this period of time now through, I guess, January where you're ramping up. And how do you manage both the programming side of it, but also the athlete's mental side of like, hey, we're going to get there. There's got to be some patience there. And how do you kind of manage that whole process?
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, every year has been drastically different. So the build hasn't been the same. Like I've taken a very almost like an Olympic cycle approach with you, knowing what the original weaknesses were to where we're currently at. So from a focal point perspective, it's always just been about, like we call it like aerobic speed, doing, relatively the same amount of work, but doing it faster. And then building you back from a dynamic contraction standpoint from where you were at in July. We spent a lot of time doing bodybuilding, trying to put on some mass, a lot of tempo work, a lot of slow work, a lot of like lower velocity work, and a lot of strength biased work. When we started to kind of make this transition of like, hey, we're going to build back, I kind of looked at this as, one, we need to get back into kind of some sports specific positions, right? And we're going to start doing some more weightlifting. We're going to slowly start building you back kind of higher volume, lower density gymnastics work that you're finally starting to see here. That's more dynamic, right? Kind of like chest to bar muscle up, ring muscle up, stuff like that. More interval style stuff that isn't taking you so deep into a rep range where we're starting to see technical breakdown. And it's really about just accumulating volume, building back some of that fast twitch, high, call it like high contraction effort or volume. And really building back your lungs. That's kind of been the big emphasis, throwing you back on a row or something that is inevitably going to be in the open. So starting with open specific monostructural work, hitting a lot of like high effort intervals there, kind of like threshold intervals. I'm pretty confident in where you're at from an aerobic base standpoint. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time doing like zone 2. That's really been what the last 2 years of your life has honestly looked like. So I know that base is there. Now it's about getting faster, getting that body back in a place where it can tolerate lactate, still work, at a high fatigue standpoint, but still produce a lot of power. So I said a lot within that. Priority, getting faster on the machines, power sustainment, dynamic gymnastics, exposure and frequency, right? Like I'm real focused on recoverability at a certain volume standpoint. Like how are we recovering? How are we tolerating this level of volume in certain patterns? And then sports specific exposure. So getting back to snatching, you notoriously have kind of had shoulder bumps and bruises, we'll call it, when we did a lot of benching. And we started to kind of see that where we were coming off a big bench cycle and you were feeling really, really good. And then we started throwing in some snatching and it slowly started kind of rearing its head. So now we know the priority is going to be more the barbell, more weightlifting, things like that. I'm going to pull way back, benching, like probably not even going to touch it. for the remainder of the season, unless it's maybe some dumbbells and some mixed pieces. But that's kind of where my build back focus has been.
Sweet. And so that, again, for me, the there is a thought too of over the summer, I got so confident that it didn't matter. Like, even when we went to team training weekends, I was so confident in my, I guess you want to call it like tissue tolerance of being able to I was never worried about like, man, that's going to be a lot of reps of whatever it was. I remember we did I don't know what your reasoning was, but we did a ton of box jump over work. I mean, high volume box jump over stuff. I catch that in a very low position. I've got good hips to be able to, like, almost like a squat stance on the top of the box. So I actually always loved, because it was always like really good hip mobility and that kind of thing. So I got really confident, and it didn't matter what we were going to do. I was going to be able to recover from that. One of the things I've come back already and experienced in doing the Wadapalooza qualifiers a little bit is like, I'm not overly confident that I'm going to be able to recover from 120 box jump overs and then be able to do something 2-3 days later with 100, several hundred double unders, whatever it is. Actually, you gave me 600 double unders last week. And I was like, the next day I was like, oh, the calves are feeling this, where normally that would be totally fine. So I've noticed that already, of like, there's just some, again, I'm going to use the word tissue tolerance of things that I just haven't been training at volume, that almost gives you like pause of like, when I see something like, ooh, how's that going to feel? Whereas, again, mentally over the summer, there was I just would see it and do it, and no question. Right. And so there's that on ramp of like getting back that confidence of having it just by doing the reps, I guess.
Yeah, I think, I mean, something good for people to hear within that. I mean, that's great that you kind of felt that. And like, I think it's honestly good to have a little bit of hesitation with those things, because you, like, when you haven't done it for a while, it's going to hit you a little bit harder. And for people listening out there, I don't think there's anything wrong with Tyler jumping into, some like team training, gym training, stuff like that, when we were in this like off-season piece, to like be a part of the community and all of that. But you have to think bigger picture when you do jump back into a full week training priority or focus of more like complete mixed modal work. Like, you can recover from a singular session. Like, that's not going to impact you nearly as hard. But when you start looking at fatigue management over the entirety of the week, and now you're hitting kind of more, you have more touch points of dynamic contractions and strength work and conditioning. Now the fatigue needs to be a little bit more strategic in the prescription of it. Versus just that one singular session. So, I think it's great, you as an athlete, where you're like, yeah, like, I can do these single sessions. That'd be totally cool. Like, Sunday's a rest day, and then maybe Monday we hit a little bit lighter. But now that we're like, hey, now we're in it, now we're fully into training, now we're seeing this Monday through Saturday, right? And like, the recoverability is going to be different. The session to session fatigue management needs to be completely different from my perspective. And you just need to be even that more dialed in the basic lifestyle factors now.
Gotta lock your shit in. Sorry, D. Damn it.
No, dude, she'll love you telling me that. She's the biggest CrossFit fan.
Something else that coaches can think about, and I wholeheartedly agree with everything that was just said, and something I've done in regards to Tyler's question of ramping athletes back up, is taking the beautiful orchestration of volume and intensity and structuring it in a block periodization format as we start ramping back up, right? And which is probably pretty similar to what Ryan was just saying, but I made for some athletes focus purely on volume to start, and that goes alongside with increasing tolerance and repeatability and fatigue management. So I might start at a moderate level of volume, and then week 2 increase that 10%, week 3 increase that 5% for a smaller jump, and then week 4 possibly another 5 or 10%. And I might run that over 4 to 5 weeks, and then come upon the next cycle, I'm going to drop that down to that first 10% increase, which would be 10% less or 15% less, depending upon the percentage increase that we've raised. And now I'll work on the inverse relationship with intensity, and I'll keep the volume where it is, but now I'll start sprinkling in 1 to 2 days of intensity. And then I'll slowly add that up, not necessarily in days, but more so in total accumulated stress from an intensification aspect on the system, whether it's neurological or metabolic, and ramp that up over 4 or 5 weeks, right? And that's like another slow step progression that some people can utilize with athletes to kind of get them back in the swing of things. And I think sometimes, depending upon who the athlete is, a too quick introduction of intensity can offset them in a negative way. Right. And I think that's one area that people got to be careful of, even for games level athletes, especially if they've been chomping on Oreo fudge blizzards for 3 weeks.
They're so good. But for the record, it's worth it. 100% worth it. Just don't tell Mike.
What Tyler's not talking about is the progression of Chick-fil-A to Dairy Queen and what that looked like.
That
Because
wasn't the full
we're
picture.
totally not even talking about
wasn't the
the
full
Chick-fil-A
picture.
phase.
You know, unpopular opinion, but it's mine, and that's the great thing about opinions. Chick-fil-A, Ames, they all suck.
I've never been.
I hate them all.
You've never been to Chick-fil-A?
No.
Okay. At all?
I'd never been to a Five Guys until you and Jess took me.
Five Guys?
Big Five Guys slaps. It was good. Get the patty melt.
You know, we need a camp of some fashion at 1124, and
We
we're
gotta
at
do
Five
it.
Guy
Fat
and
kid camp?
Chick-fil-A.
Five Guys, Chick-fil-A, and then cap it off with a little DQ Blizzard. Come
And
on.
I want D there making me some breakfast in the morning.
Dude, bro, D would be all. So I'm telling you, I'm doing Waterpalooza qualifiers right now. Every morning she texts me. She's like, "Hey, what time are you doing workout?" She's up. She never misses anything.
I love
Callie
it.
counts all my reps, and Mom is right there in the background, just supporting. It's
Dude,
great.
no. What blows my mind is Callie Cooke slaves to make
on.
homemade jalapeno sourdough, and you're eating a Chick-fil-A.
I still eat the sourdough for breakfast, but the Chick-fil-A was a big part of the diet for a while.
Yeah, it was.
Where we
I
at?
was a
Touching
rep up there.
So coming back to what Jay's saying, I think, Tyler, you're experiencing this now as we kind of came out of that first block, right? Where that first block was definitely heavy on the monostructural work. And now we're starting to get into, if you want to label it like muscle endurance work or like dynamic contraction volume. And now you're starting to see that exact progression of what Jay's talking about, this like slow incremental build back to kind of like high speed, right? High speed reps and building, the joint, the tendon, the tissue tolerance to that sort of stuff, which is kind of like the pinnacle of where I think you ultimately needed to be in this 3-year sort of cycle. Originally, it was all about your lungs, getting your lungs up to par. Like strength has never been an issue for you. It's more about, I would say, the lungs and resiliency and just keeping you fresh. That was kind of the big focal point, and maybe some like athlete IQ stuff, just getting you to understand workouts and being a little bit more strategic in how you approach workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year, it's about extending that dynamic volume.
When you say extending that dynamic volume, break that out even more. What do you mean exactly?
So taking what I've built you up to the last couple of years and now exceeding that, making that a bigger priority within the training block. So, using the like buzzword terms of like functional volume, building that even deeper, right? Like building your capacity even further out, because I'm not nearly as focused on building your lungs or building like your ability to sustain power. I think we needed that because you weren't totally ready to go from bodybuilding into full mixed modal. And we needed that bridge of bodybuilding, high speed monostructural into dynamic contraction volume.
Yep. And that's a pretty quick bridge though, right? That's not 2-3 months worth of bridging. And we did that for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Almost more of an exposure thing. Dude, it's so cool you just said that. The reason I asked you to expand on it is I was talking to somebody the other day about it. And we actually had this conversation after quarterfinals the first year we were together. It's probably 8 months working together. And I got to the wall facing handstand push-up workout. They had the muscle ups and handstand walk and all that. And I'm talking, got bodied by those I did 21 wall walks and 21 single handstand push-ups because you had to wall walk into it. I got bodied. I was cruising through the workout. Anyway, that kept me from semifinal. Point is, you and I talked after, had a little debrief, and literally you said, well, man, we can only train so much. We went through a really intense ring muscle up cycle, which I thought was brilliant now looking back at it, because that cleaned up all my other gymnastics. Now I'm about to sidebar geek out, so stay with me. This is story time with Q. It's my podcast. So we did this ring, and you said we can't do both. I can't especially on my shoulders, they creak. You can't do an intense ring muscle up and a handstand push-up progression. So we had to pick, and we got bigger bang for our buck on the ring muscle up because it cleaned up a lot of the other pulling gymnastics. And we just didn't have the time of training together before that particular competition to work on the handstand push-up. Flip it now, and I think my max is 30, 35 while facing unbroken, because we then had time to work on positions and things like that. And I remember that was a big one. And then we also talked at length about the base building stuff, you told me initially I did a whole bunch of bike erg stuff, slow stuff. I said, Ryan, what's up with the bike erg stuff, man? This is kind of, I've always used it as like a cool down recovery tool. And you said, I've got to strengthen your heart and your lungs. This is the lowest impact way to do that because you're just pumping the legs. I've got to prep your heart and your lungs to strengthen them, to get them ready for what's coming down the road. And I didn't fully understand it at first. I was kind of like, oh, whatever. He's supposed to be smart. It'll be fine. And later now what I see is like, that was almost the buy-in
Yeah.
for the shit that we get to do now is like play, you call it play the game. And that's like play the mixed modal, intense, fun stuff that you almost have to, as a younger, almost I call it immature athlete, like that's what everybody wants to do. You have to like have the requisite tissue tolerances, lung capacity, heart, all these things, strength, strengths, like you said, we didn't have to spend a ton of time working strength. A lot of other athletes have to spend a big training block, big chunk of their time. And so it's almost like if you looked at the 4 years together, it was like very base building. The bike erg stuff was like the beginning. I just got to get you prepped to even play the game. And then we did the ring. So you like staged it. And now the question would be like, I think I told you this after the games. It's almost like, man, I think I almost know now like what I'm doing, like what to do, what buttons to press to get ready for it. It's almost like now you get to tinker and play with like the mixed modal side. Is that kind of how you see it of like base, 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 base? For 3 years, it felt like that was a lot of base. And then now it's like, now we kind of got to get back into it and see where that is.
Yeah. I mean, it takes that long. Like I'm going to go.
That's the hard part for
I'm going
athletes
to go on a
hear.
tangent is like these dickhead athletes that just jump from camp to camp to camp thinking that like 1 year with a person is realistically going to make the major change. You have to buy in to the long play idea, and just jumping from coach to coach to coach, they never have a chance to develop the base level systems and then reap the reward of the base level work. So you never actually know what's possible if you're just jumping. So I think that's a really important note to make. And then you right now, one, it's about building you back to a elite level tolerance, we'll call it, of volume, like just being able to recover and perform multiple days in a row. But for you, it's about efficiency. More times than not, it's always been about efficiency. All that zone 2 work is about breathing efficiency. All the dynamic work, how I have it structured, like low density, high volume, again, is all about efficiency. It's all about taking away the opportunity for you to build in shitty reps, right? So I structure it in a way where every rep is super crisp, is super clean, and you can build a huge volume ceiling with only the, 9 out of 10 quality reps. That's what I'm looking for right now, because for you to reach the peak, it just comes down to how well do you understand the workout? How efficient is your movement and your ability to resist fatigue, which those two things go together. The better the movement, the better your ability to resist fatigue, as long as we've built up that functional volume ceiling.
I think the biggest takeaway and what people have to understand with programming, working with athletes, is that phase potentiation is a real thing. And phase potentiation goes way beyond 4 weeks into the next 4 weeks into the next 4 weeks. And if you truly look at developing athletes and put them in a position for longevity, adaptation, and give them a baseline platform that they can continually elevate as the demands of a sport elevate, then you have to understand what you need to do from a starting point for them and where everything else stands upon. Right? If you think about it, the tallest buildings or the tallest trees, they always have the deepest roots or the strongest foundation to stand upon. And that also it gives them the ability to withstand storms and setbacks and hardships. And athletes are no different. And the stronger base they have by acquiring the proper foundation of which everything else within inside their desired sport can be built upon, then the higher ceiling you've given them to continually progress and elevate. And then when they do need back off weeks or transitional months, their ramp back up is a lot more efficient and quicker because of that. And you see athletes that either like are a one-time wonder, one-hit wonder, or they have a hard time ramping back up, or they found themselves constantly beat down and worn out. It's simply because that foundation hasn't had enough time under stress to properly be developed, of which everything else can firmly stand upon as the demands of stress and intensity intensify for them in either way.
I think to add to that too, Jay, you have athletes that are really good at one thing year after year after year and never actually go back around and build up the weakness. Like big thing when you propose this question, Tyler, I thought it was really important, one, to talk about phase potentiation and what that actually does. Like the off season is when you're building the base of the weakness. So you look at the athlete's weakness, you reverse engineer what things they need to acquire to actually improve their weakness. And that off season is a great opportunity to do that stuff, whether it's power work, whether it's gymnastics volume, whether it's aerobic speed or whatever it is. That's the time to put in the base level work. And that could be positional work, that could be monostructural work, that could be whatever, hypertrophy work, if you need strength, like whatever it is. If you're not looking at your off season as an opportunity to put in the groundwork for future progress to shore up or improve your weaknesses, you're missing a huge part of the season.
But a big part of everything we're talking about is all that everything we're saying is really kind of the ugly side of it that people just don't want to do. They don't want to do an hour of pretty slow rowing or biking or whatever it is. They don't want to do positional work. That handstand push-up thing we did, I didn't just go hammer handstand push-ups. That could be a whole nother topic of like, hey, you're bad at this one thing. You're bad at legless rope climbs. Well, we're going to start doing 30 legless rope climbs every other day. It's like, that's not how we fix this. And that's not what we did. I didn't
Or
just
running
hammer
for the
those.
sake of running.
Or just running just to run. And like, so for me, like, that's the ugly part that people don't want to listen to about, hey, this might take a 2-year project, 3-year project to get the point where you can, because it's off season, then there's qualifiers and everybody wants to stay in really good shape during that time. And like, that's okay if that's what you want to do year round, is be doing qualifiers and competing. But if you're truly focused on what's my actual season, I guess that's probably a big part of it. Like, let's define what our goals are. But for me, it was always like, hey, the games season. So that gives us this nice little window. But if I was just trying to compete in every qualifier that came out, and then you have to be doing mixed modal and doing all the things that are required there, I don't have time to do all the not sexy, boring, slow stuff. Right. And that just takes the athlete buying into, okay, this shit's going to suck for a little while, but in March and in April, I'm going to really feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know Jay's got a jet soon.
You guys can stay on and keep jamming. You guys are jamming.
I'll leave people with this. Winning isn't losing, or winning is never boring. Training oftentimes can feel boring, but if you tell yourself it's boring, it's going to be boring. Boring is a mindset choice of the athlete. So if you feel that way, maybe it's your weak ass mind that needs improvement and you need to have some reflection of why you're actually doing this. But Tyler's improvement in the handstand push-up was exactly what he's saying. It wasn't doing handstand push-ups. It was spending more time with focused and strategic mobility work, improving his thoracic extension, improving his shoulder flexion and extension. And dude, we spent more time doing that stuff and then periodically throwing you into handstand push-ups, one, to gauge progress, but also expose the new range, expose the tissue to that. And we didn't have to go hammer thousands and thousands of reps. And that I think is a big point we have to make here is, as a masters athlete, you just can't do that shit. Right. And like young athletes that have the, they can do that. They can beat themselves up a little bit more, aren't thinking of the downstream effects of what this is going to be. And if you want to be a player in this long term, you have to rethink your approach. And volume is very rarely a solution to most of the problems posed in the sport, if you're not addressing movement issues or things like that. Like, that's a down the stream solution.
And that, my friends, is why having a sound program and coach is extremely effective. And watch what I'm do here. And if you find yourself on an island or like you're not making the proper progress, you should set up a free consult with Conquer Athlete to see how the individual design program will work best for you. See how I did that? That flowed in perfectly to that tie-in.
I'm the Joe Rogan of this generation, gentlemen. I don't know what to tell you. Helping the business. This is great.
Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We got to run. We'll jam on the next one. But that might have been the world's worst outro ever. Thank you guys for listening. D, shout out to D. We'll see you guys in the next podcast.
See you guys.